Welcome to Odd Pairing. I am Paige, and I have my lovely host, Natasha, here today.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing?
Good.
Good?
It's hot as fuck in San Diego.
Yes.
And I'm sick of the shit. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's air conditioning.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't cut off our power.
I mean, Governor Newsom, putting us on a restraint. I'm like, sir, it's hot during that time of the day. Why would you cut me off?
Yeah. And they're sending out those emails that are like, draw your curtains and I don't know.
I already have black curtains anyway because I'm a witch during the day. So I have to keep all of my magical stuff to a minimum before my neighbors complain. But yeah, I always had black curtains because it's easier to sleep if you want to take a nap during the day. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
we have those at home because we have children. Not during the day. But same thing.
Yeah, that's sneaky stuff. That's that sneaky stuff right there.
Yeah. Today we have someone special. We've got Kris from Forgotten Barrel Winery in Escondido.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome, Kris.
We'll do a group cheers real quick, and then we'll get into all of the business. Cheers.
Cheers, ladies.
Delish. And we'll talk about what you brung for us in a second. So, we do a thing on here where we have a drinking game because we are advanced drinkers and we want to make sure we drink throughout so people know that we are tasting everything. Okay.
Sounds good to me.
So with that, we select a word, and our word for the day is winery.
Okay.
And because we're talking about wine today, I wanted to make sure that it was something that was very frequent for us to be able to do. And also just kind of, get us tasting here.
All right.
So
I should have bought more bottles then.
Yeah.
So every time someone says it, everyone drinks, not just the person who says it.
Do we have to acknowledge it to each other, or do we just do it?
No, we acknowledge it.
We acknowledge it, and then if somebody else doesn't do it, you give them the stare down.
Okay.
Because we also try to get our fans out there also to acknowledge that when we miss it.
Winery then.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
let's start it off. I got a business deal I got to do later, but whatever.
I was going to say, I'm almost empty already. Okay. So, that was quick, right?
That was really quick. You taking shots of wine or you drinking it?
Yeah.
What is happening there?
What are we drinking?
We are drinking a 2021 Sauvignon Blanc. And we source most of our grapes from throughout California. We do as much San Diego as we can. But these are San Diego grapes. And this is probably my favorite white wine that we make.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely delicious.
Very refreshing, especially during this heat. I'm definitely more of a red drinker, but I've been drinking this a lot over the past few weeks with this heat. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Good thing you have some Sauvignon Blanc to help you through it.
Yes. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. You can't be cool, be thirsty,
Yep. And it's nice. Actually, my girlfriend and I live on the property at the winery. So anytime we're out, we can just...
I was going to say, you have like a fresh supply.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not even going to the store.
Very close.
What a dream.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We've been out there for about 6 months.
I never make it out the property. I'll stop in and be like, I'm just going to have like a little sip. And that'll be the end.
Well, it is still in Escondido. So it's very, very hot right now.
Yeah.
So it is nice to pop out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
that makes
107
sense.
Last weekend.
Stop, really?
Yeah.
So, that's a no for me.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, in September, isn't October will probably be pretty.
Yep.
We'll see what happens.
And I want people who don't understand why we're complaining about the heat, because
That's true.
San Diego is always at a cool temperature between maybe 68 and 74 all the time, all year round. So anything that goes above 75, we are complaining as though this is our first time in the summertime weather and we've never done this before. And we will complain for 2 whole weeks because that's how long it lasts.
And it will happen every year.
And every single year, as though it's brand new.
We're going to be just as shocked.
Right.
And surprised every single year the heat wave comes.
Yeah.
And
Lowe's and Home Depot will sell out of their air conditioners every time.
Yeah.
And the stand-up fans.
Yep.
And
they just put signs on the doors now. My mom went to go buy one the other day, and they're like, we don't have any.
And it's almost like people go, you know what? Now that the heat is over, I'm not going to need it anymore. So then they sell it because you see a whole bunch of them being sold on like OfferUp or eBay or whatever coming from San Diego. And then they start over all over again next year. Oh, no, this is my first time being in the heat. Now I got to buy a little portable AC. And I'm like, what?
How did you not keep it last year?
How did you not keep it last year? But you know what? That's neither here nor there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Well, you have to.
In my house specifically, but in the tasting room, yes. But we are primarily an outdoor venue.
Yeah.
So it's warm.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
warm.
Oh, for sure.
But that's wine culture. Like you're not really going to wineries, especially in California, if it's not
warm.
Going to be warm. There are, the more industrial wineries now. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Mm-hmm. But places that have property and whatnot.
Right.
There's not a lot of wineries
side.
that have a lot of property and indoor seating.
Yeah.
It's few and far
between.
between.
Did he say it?
He did.
Oh.
Yeah, go ahead and take a sip there. I picked this word for a reason, a good reason, obviously.
Yeah. Well, Kris and I know each other from beer.
Beer.
So we work together very closely. He was the president of the Brewers Guild for a long time.
Like 12 years.
Wow.
I just was like, don't leave.
I was like, you don't look.
No. I was a part of the board for 4 years.
Yeah.
And I was president for 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we worked super close together. And then he left beer and went to wine.
I worked with Paige for way too long.
Good
I
for
wanted
you.
to start over, fresh start.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the only way he could get away.
Yep.
Yeah.
It clearly
Go
didn't
into
work,
a different industry.
Yeah.
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 Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but when you were in beer, like, what were you doing? And I mean, I know, but our listeners might. So,
I was with Booze Brothers Brewing Company in Vista. That brewery is owned by Dave and Donnie Firth, and I knew them from high school and right outside of high school, and we're friends for a long time. And they eventually started homebrewing. It's a very classic story, but they got real into it. They had a big walk-in cooler in their garage. They converted their garage into a little tap room. So all of us were hanging out there, drinking on a very regular basis. And at that time, I was just doing freelance graphic design and video work. So I had plenty of free time.
Mm-hmm.
So when they signed a lease for the brewery, I was like, yeah, I'll just help out. I'll pour beer, whatever. And it kind of snowballed into a bigger role once it was open. And so I was there for a few years. They made me like a partner, and I was just kind of like the general manager, marketing. I kind of had my hand in pretty much everything but brewing. I've never brewed beer, and that wasn't something they needed any help with.
Yeah.
So I did that for 8 years. 8 years. And it was a lot of fun.
Mm.
And I was going to start scaling back my involvement like right around the time when the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. So that put everything on pause. But I love doing it. I love beer. I still go in there and drink all the time. But I wasn't getting burnt out by any means. But what my original involvement was supposed to be at a smaller scale. So I did want to focus on other things too. Mm-hmm. So I had told them a while before the pandemic, I was like, hey, I'm going to like kind of shift roles. And I started going into just the marketing side of things towards the end, and it was going really good. But then I know the owner of the winery, and he made my girlfriend and I winery. He made my girlfriend and I a very good offer to kind of move over to there and kind of focus on that stuff. So even though I was intentionally trying to scale back my involvement on like a managerial side, the winery was a really good fit. Sorry.
Sure was.
So yeah, we kind of took that. And so that was kind of the only reason why I left beer altogether, technically. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm still involved, and I drink at all my friends' breweries, and I help a couple friends with like a couple little brewery projects. Nothing on a large scale, but
I send you stuff sometimes.
You send me stuff. I still stay pretty
involved.
Up on it. Yeah. To like more than I'm more than an outside view, but at the same time, I'm not like making it a priority.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but it's cool. Love beer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still a big fan. I mean, I probably like beer more than wine still, but
Oh. Well, I was gonna say we had Jill on recently.
Horrible person.
Terrible human being.
Very rude.
We love her.
Yeah.
And she helped Natasha find mango tahini, which you also helped kind of develop. So I thought that was kind of like full circle in a way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Owl Farm was a secondary brand outside of Booze Brothers, which obviously it's still going. And we kind of developed that for people like you, for people who weren't exactly big craft beer drinkers. And we wanted to do something that kind of spoke to a different audience without taking what we were doing on a daily basis at Booze Brothers. And I don't want to say like muddying it, but we wanted to create a separation of like Booze Brothers is more of the classic style beers and Owl Farm is going to be these weird, unique fruit forward beers. And, I was at a friend's birthday and I was eating some watermelon with tahini on it. I was like, this would be like such a good Owl Farm beer. And I kind of took a photo of it, sent it to everyone at the brewery, and everyone had the same opinion. They're like, oh, you just don't like spicy beer, which none of us did. Like we're thinking of a certain brewery that put habanero in their beer, which that brewery's fine, but that beer is horrible. It's just too much. So I think everyone kind of was like, we don't like spicy beer.
Right.
And I was like, this isn't spicy. This would be kind of different. And Donnie kind of made a couple different pilot recipes and we were all like, not really sure about it, but we're like, yeah, let's just go with it. And it was very quickly probably the most popular beer we made. But watermelon's only in season for a few months. And our sales rep at the time, Fraser, he was like, we should probably do a mango tahini and we could do mango all year round. And we did make it kind of a one-off at first, but that's
there's demand.
Yeah, and I think it's still one of their best-selling beers.
Yeah. So, well, I know that even like when the watermelon one comes out, it's like a big deal.
The watermelon one is definitely a bigger deal in the sense of it's specialty. Yeah. So people order it up real quick, but
it's like a great summer drinking beer.
It's a pain in the ass beer to make. It's definitely
you have to juice it.
It's definitely the most work they put into any of the beers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Takes like a team of people. They just take the wedding venue side of it and just put basically tarps down all over, and they're just cutting up watermelons for days, and they get them whenever they can. And
that's wild.
Yeah, it's a pain, but
part of the love of the labor, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Labor of love.
Yeah,
Wait.
I mean,
is that the phrase?
It's a good selling beer.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. But the mango quickly turned into the most popular one from the Owl Farm line, just because it's also available all year round. And yeah, it's great. So I'm glad you liked it.
I'm kind of stuck on that they thought the tahini was spicy.
No.
More of like a...
No, so it was original when I sent the photo, because it says like chili spice on there, and it was just like, I don't know, we don't really like spicy beer. We don't do spicy beers. I'm like, this wouldn't be a spicy beer. This has like the kick. And so that's when he started making recipes for it. So it's a goza, and gozas use sea salt or salt normally, and instead of using salt, it was actually going and just grabbing tahini and using it. And Donnie would go to Costco and just clear it. He would clear.
I was going to say that's like a lot of tahini.
He would clear Costco out of tahini regularly. Oh, wow. I mean, obviously they'd get it in right away, but they'd kind of be like, "What do you need this much tahini for?" It's like 50 barrels of beer.
Yeah. So, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely a good one.
Yeah. It's a fun summer beer.
Yeah. I would actually like to taste it somewhere where they like do the rim.
Yeah.
With tahini.
Did you guys do that at the brewery?
Yeah, like
would you guys do
the brewery would do would do like brunch events here and there and stuff, and that's where it would get done usually. But during like summertime and stuff, they'll sometimes do like the chamois rim and all that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then we it's always fun.
Yeah,
it's a popular way to drink beer. It makes it a little bit different and all that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So what has it been like for you to go from beer to wine, and who calls you a trader?
You know what? I haven't been called a trader by anyone, at least industry-wise, because they're like, oh, yeah, I would like some wine. Yeah. I'll go check you out. So there's been a lot of people from the beer industry who come over. I mean, the guild did a meeting there one time, and they were not shy about purchasing wine at the end of it.
I think every single one of us bought more than one bottle when we left.
Yeah, I think especially when you've been doing something long enough and other people have been doing long enough, it's always nice to have like that extra reason to go try something else out.
Yeah.
And it was pretty intrigued when I'm like, oh, it's this winery. So our winery location is actually winery. Oh, here you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you need more?
No, because I'm ready to
try it.
To try the reds.
I'll say the word winery a couple of times.
Oh, perfect. So I can get rid of it.
Our winery location
slow those things down.
is the oldest location in San Diego.
Oh,
we're not the longest running winery. So it was originated. It was built in 1886. Hold it up, because Bernardo Winery is the longest running winery in San Diego.
I'm gonna take those 2 sips.
Go for it. But there was 2 brands prior to us. A German family owned it from like 1886 to the early 20s, I guess. And then the Ferrara family took it over in the early 20s until 2010. So it sat dormant for 6 years. Then our owner bought it and we opened in 17. So when I tell people kind of like, oh yeah, we're just tucked away in the neighborhoods, like right off the freeway in Escondido, no one knows what I'm talking about. Or a lot of people don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of intrigue, and, it is odd, I guess, for somebody, at least specifically like me, to go from beer to wine, because I'm not an expert, I guess, in either of those fields, really. So it's like, you went to a winery and you're running it, helping run it. And
yeah.
So people are more interested than calling me a trader. And I think everyone in the brew world understands getting burnt out or wanting a change and that kind of stuff. So, but I do like the change. It's really cool. There's certain things I like better about beer and certain things I like better about wine. I like the pace of wine. It's a little bit slower paced.
Oh, for sure.
It's you hang out. It's not that, but it's also technically not as fun. Where at like a brewery with, like collaborations, new beer releases, we did a lot of art shows, a lot of live music, all that kind of stuff at Booze Brothers was really fun. But it does get kind of draining when that's like your weekly cycle.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have to do stuff like that to stay relevant, and that's what the brewery should be doing. But it's kind of nice going over to wine, where it's a very different way of marketing. It's a very different crowd. So plus and minuses for sure. I don't necessarily always fit in with every. I probably fit in better with the beer culture than wine culture. Wine culture is usually people older than me and kind of going to like the equivalent of like Brewers Guild meetings for like the winery guilds. That one's always funny. I am noticeably younger than everyone. Wine, especially in San Diego wine, it's a lot of couples. Like almost every winery in San Diego is like mom and pop. Lots of them own their property, and then they started just growing grapes. It's like a hobby, and then they have like a small winery, and maybe they'll be open like only on Saturday and Sunday for 3 hours. I'll just drink for you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
What? And I'll pour.
We can go into the next one. We can keep talking about. I think like that's just going from one alcohol manufacturing, and the process and everything is so different. Clientele, customer, environment, everything is very different.
Yeah, I think of it like going from rock music to classical music.
That is
like
probably
that kind of.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, like that kind of usually. Like demographic of people who it sounds like. From beer, everybody was ready to party, and then you went over to wine, and everybody was like,
there's definitely people who like
with
to
their
party
pinky up
with wine. Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
party with their pinky up, and that I guess technically could be more of a problem, but
with higher ABVs and stuff, right?
But I mean, it's a much higher price point, so I think that's what's certain stuff like that is harder for me, where it's. The entry level to wine. A lot of people are like, did you like wine before you worked there? I'm like, of course. I just didn't drink nearly as much of it as I probably would have liked to. Right. Because it's not like you want to just go buy a bottle and then be like, I've never had this one. It's more expensive, noticeably more expensive. So it makes sense why there's a pretty big difference. And I think it's probably kind of nice having somebody a little bit more youthful involved in a winery, where part of my job was to kind of like, when I got brought on, was to make some changes there. And
it's basically trying to make wine sexy. Because
I can make anything sexy. That's not
okay, Kris.
Anything but my face, I can make sexy. But yeah, it was just kind of like, how do we adapt, acclimate? I got brought on, the pandemic's definitely not over, but once things really started opening back up and businesses kind of had to adapt and change to animal wedding. We do a lot of weddings and stuff too, but it was like, what can we do a little bit different? What can we start to do to set ourselves apart from other local wineries? How can we just bring more people in? And for me, it was like, let's not focus on what all these other companies are doing, which is in wine. Everything seems to be like pretty templated and classic. And it's like, well, this is how things have been done for so long. And that's cool. But
I was going to say, is it challenging, or is there like resistance against kind of trying to bring in that younger demographic, like breaking the template, breaking the mold that you see in like kind of the other regional wineries around?
So change has to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, I haven't got any pushback about really anything. Because I'm not just like, I didn't walk in there and I was like, hey, I came from beer, so this is what we're doing.
Right.
It was just like, hey, these are some things that breweries do. This is some things that I did. For instance, we just had, I'll tell a little bit more of the backstory, but we just had the 5-year anniversary of Forgotten Barrel being at this location. And we did a 5-year anniversary party. As far as I can tell, wineries don't have anniversary parties.
Oh, okay.
Which we know that's huge in beer. And so we did that. And the second I announced it, like all of our regulars were like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I can't wait to go. And it was like by far the busiest day we've had, at least since I was there.
Yeah.
And people were like, this is cool. You should do more stuff like this. And that, like, I'm trying to do events and stuff like that. That's still, it's not necessarily appealing to a completely different demographic. It's just a way to appeal to a more broad demographic and make it a little bit more fun, rather than just, hey, let's go do a wine tasting.
Grab some glasses or something.
Yeah. So stuff like that. And that kind of makes my job easier, because I can just borrow from things that I and the beer industry have done for a while, take the cool parts of it and apply it to wine. And people are pretty excited about that. And it looks like I have, almost better ideas than I really do. It's not. No, I'm not like trying to hide it or be like, I came up with this idea. No one's ever done an anniversary party. But, do more wine and dinner pairings, do brunch events. We started working with a really cool caterer, and now we're doing like just brunch wine events, and that stuff's really cool.
Yeah. So, brunch is really trendy right now. Like, it's everywhere. Like everybody's doing it at this point. So that's good to kind of, piggyback off of that.
Yeah, and we did the brunch a couple weeks ago with Chef Joanne. She's like a caterer that we use for most of our stuff. And Alyssa and I worked with her a ton at Booze Brothers with all the weddings that we did there. And she did a really big brunch spread, and people got tickets, and it was all you can eat, came with 2 glasses of wine or sangria or mimosas. And she did like fried chicken, waffles, vegetable platters, fruit platters, all this stuff. Everything was also 100% gluten-free, which was really cool.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really cool. She's a phenomenal chef. We love working with her. But even something like that, I had a lot of people coming up and be like, this is so cool. Please tell me you're going to do this like every month, every week. I'm like, well, we're definitely not. We'll do it maybe every 6 weeks.
I learned that at the brewery, like trying to do too many of the things, it's kind of nice that you're able to bring that experience of doing so many events that it ends up becoming, not burnout, but just like
overkill.
Yeah.
Especially,
like you need to keep it unique.
Yeah. And it's hard to do something that has like a higher price point week after week after week.
Right.
Kind of loses its luster. If we do something that's expensive every week, people are going to be like, I don't have like an extra,
I can only go once a quarter,
$400 a month to spend at a winery, where on top of buying wine. So it's like, do stuff frequent. And plus we have like our, we have our like wine club and our pickup parties. So we already have stuff that we're not getting rid of a lot of things that we do.
Right.
So it is, it's kind of that's a long version to your question, but
no,
I probably like working in wine just as much as beer, but for very different reasons than each other. I like the creative side of beer a lot more than wine. Wine's like, here's an idea. Let's make a wine. It'll be ready in 2.5 years or whatever it might be. Here's a very like classic style label. Here's this. Here, you got to fit into certain things. Where beer, it's like you can draw whatever you want and put it on a can label. And if it doesn't do well, it's okay. The next thing is coming out in a month. So
again, faster paced.
Yeah. The marketing side is way more fun for beer. And on the wine side, it's like, well, how pretty can I make this wine photo? How can I present this in a high-end looking way? And it's fun because it's a challenge for me, but it's not fun on the creative side of like, oh, I have this really unique idea where the guy's head is falling off and I can put it on a label or something. So, yeah.
What?
Well, I'm just saying, like with what we did with Booze Brothers.
No, I know. You can't put decapitated people on wine labels.
But who says you can't? That's what I'm talking about in terms of like change. Just I mean, I know literally you didn't mean that, but in terms of like change, because think about that. I'm not gonna say it was a good wine, but what is that wine where it's like Snoop Dogg is on the front and it's the other people that was in jail, like that crime? Yeah, that one, like that kind of took it out of the box in terms of like labels, because then it kind of brung this like interactive label at that, to try to get people who were in a younger demographic to kind of just be exposed to that one and try to get into that. So they kind of had that like out of the box thinking, and I think more wine makers should kind of think about like more of that out of the box thinking, because because people pay what they pay. Like we kind of think about like, oh, if I'm going to pay for beer, then of course when you can see a paint on there and it'd be like $19 when you see like $9. And then you see like a glass of wine, it's like $22 for a glass. Yep. But at the same time, I think if you make it a little bit more interesting in terms of like marketing, since you're in that like area, making it more, way more interesting, then I think people gravitate towards that, because I think now everyone wants that. Trendy is the trend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, if I can take that and make it just trendy for a little bit to get people into it, and then kind of go back to my old used to, I think that's kind of like where it would go.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Birkin bag's been out for years, and then it became trendy all of a sudden. Now people are like, oh, I need to find, $12,000 so I could buy a Birkin bag. So the point is, people will find a way to get it if it's in the trend.
Totally. And I guess I should have stated a little differently. It's not that doesn't exist in wine at all, but I went to a winery that already had kind of an established look. An established look and feel. And again, I couldn't go into a winery and say, okay, my name's Kris. This is what I did at the brewery world, and I'm going to change all this stuff. It wouldn't have come across as natural.
Yeah. I mean, take your time with it.
Well, and if we ever did a second winery brand,
I love this.
Skitzel.
Like, we didn't even talk about what we're drinking.
Yeah. I guess I'll get to that. So if we did something like what we did with Owl Farm, where we came up with a second brand, we would do something that looks very different than Forgotten Barrel.
Yeah.
If we kind of focused on more of a distribution wine, something that like sits on shelves with a different price point, like then that would work really well. But I couldn't go on to Forgotten Barrel and just be like, okay, we're redoing all the labels. And it's actually it's really hard to do that with wine, because, this is something that's really nice about wine, is a lot of times older is better. So it's not like I could change the branding, and then go re-sticker all of the old labels and all that kind of stuff. So I'm working in the parameters the best way I can with where Forgotten Barrel is. But if it was a new winery tomorrow, a new location, you could do it whatever way you want. Whether it's like a Snoop Dogg-esque branding or
because my man is on every liquor out there right now.
Yeah. Well,
I think he's not on beer. I think that's the only one he's not on.
Yeah. Why not?
He doesn't know what's up. I'm sure somebody hasn't.
I was like, someone needs to approach Snoop Dogg to be on a beer label.
It'll happen
because he on every liquor out there right now.
It's if he's not, it's weird because they'll do a danky resinous IPA for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you struggling to retain or attract frontline talent? Have you created a great work environment, but job seekers simply don't know about it? If so, Frontline Careers is here to help. Our assessment helps you improve your work environment and gives you the opportunity to earn our Frontline Friendly certification, which signifies you as a top employer. Now, through December 31st, all Vista Chamber members get 50% off of their assessment. And if you mention this ad, you'll get an additional 5% off. The time is now. Email us at info@frontlinecareers.com or visit us at frontlinecareers.com.
We want to invite you to listen to the Same Business Different Day podcast, where we sit down with business owners, entrepreneurs, and great minds to talk about their stories and how they got to be as successful as they are today. If you're a business owner, this is the show for you. You get the tips and tricks from people just like yourself. If you're an aspiring entrepreneur, this is the show for you. You get to hear from some of the best storytellers about their journeys. If you're an avid podcast listener, this is the show for you. We release every Tuesday morning on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Same Business Different Day. We make this show just for you.
San Diego beer lovers, come join us on the Pioneer Beer Trail, a free, narrated tour of 4 of Vista's iconic craft brewers, all from the convenience of your phone. Simply download the free show at vistamadetours.com or find Vista Made Tours on your favorite podcast provider, like Spotify or iTunes. Then fire up the show and you'll hear fascinating backstories, beer favorites, and food recommendations from the brewers themselves as you travel from spot to spot. It's free, fun, and the easiest way to learn about some of Vista's originals, including Booze Brothers, Belching Beaver 980, Aztec, and 5 Seats. So come travel the Pioneer Beer Trail at vistamadetours.com or from wherever you find your podcasts.
Elias, I got an idea. We're going to do a podcast. It's called Industry Insights.
That's what everybody's doing these days, like a podcast. But who are we going to target? What?
Well, this one is different because this one's going to target content creators.
Content creators? So that means film, television, animators, AI artists, everything, huh?
Yeah, all of them. We can inspire all of them. We'll bring some high caliber people in here. Not only will they learn how to get into the industry, but how to be successful.
But the thing is, a sponsorship. We have to go after things, and how we're going to do that?
Yeah, the Film Hub. We're going to sponsor it. We'll do it right here at the Film Hub in downtown Vista. Yeah, we'll sponsor it too.
Great.
Yeah, we got the podcast studio right here. We got stages, whatever you want to use. We got it here. And then right here in film-friendly Vista. Where else would you do it? And you know where they can listen to it?
Where? Tell me.
Go YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcast.
What about Metaverse?
Meta what?
What?
So
ideas.
So what is this we're drinking?
We are drinking
our
our Mayhem 2020 Red Blend.
Okay.
So it's a blend of Legrand and Syrah. Legrand is a French style grape that most people, it's not a super common grape, especially in California. That came from the Santa Ynez area, and then the Syrah came from San Diego. Our winemaker, he's been a winemaker for 30 years. He was up in Napa, and he kind of came down here to retire. And his version of retiring was working at a boutique winery.
I was going to say at a small winery.
So he loves it, and his name's John Epler. He worked for a lot of big places. I'm gonna try to not use the word so much.
I need to, because I want to get to the other one. So yeah, use it up.
He worked for he worked for a lot of big wineries. Mondavi was one of the biggest ones he worked for.
Mm-hmm.
So him coming down here to retire with his wife, he met Roger Grove, the Forgotten Barrel owner, before Roger got this location. And Roger was like, "Hey, I'm going to be opening this up do you want to kind of partner up and be our winemaker?
So he's been the winemaker since.
Yeah,
Roger
since
bought
the
it.
brand has been in Escondido.
Okay. What was it before?
So Forgotten Barrel has been a winery since 2010. And everything was made up in Napa. And it was part of like a co-op. So 5 different wine brands were there. And all of the wine got made up there, sent down to Roger down here. And then they were just distribution only. And so he kind of opened up a tasting room in Sereno Valley just as like a little proof of concept. And he was trying to do something out near the flower fields. But this whole development that was going to go on out there kind of fell through. And so he was okay, Mother Earth, AleSmith, Iron Fist, they were all going to be there, as well as Forgotten Barrel, and it was going to look out over the flower fields. And
it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. The developers were like, this just isn't going to work as a whole. It was going to be too expensive for what they really wanted to do, and they had to meet certain requirements to please the city. And so I was like, this just isn't going to work.
Those damn regulations.
Well, no, the ideas were actually kind of cool. They wanted to keep like an agricultural side of everything since it was at the flower field. So they didn't just want it to be bars on the flower field. So there was going to be this whole, like, they're going to be growing vineyards and hops and all this stuff out there. Like, the idea was cool, but I don't think the people who were kind of dictating that understood like what that took and how money wasn't going to be made from that. That's just my
like a cool
that's
element
my assumption,
of it. But
yeah, so Roger had to go to the drawing board of like what he was going to do, and somebody was like, "Hey, there's this old winery in Escondido that's out of business. You should go check it out." And he went out there, and it was pretty dilapidated. Again, the property is from 1886, and it was not like kept up, especially towards the end. And he wasn't too into it, but his son, and this is how I know him, his son is one of my best friends. And his name's Taylor, and he built a lot of Booze Brothers originally. He took it as a challenge and was like, we could do a lot of cool stuff with this. So Roger ended up buying the property. He got the houses on the property as well, and then spent like 1.5 years just flipping it and making it a way nicer setup. And so in that process, that's when he met John, our winemaker, and he's like, look at what we're doing out here. You can come do this. He was into it, but John kept all of his connections with everyone up in Napa. And so this Legrand grape, one of his friends was like, hey, I'm selling these grapes, and it's like a fun thing to play around with. And he was like, oh yeah, I can make a good blend out of it. And then this is probably our most popular wine we sell.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's like, it's not too bold. It's nice in the middle. And people are big fans of it. It's probably my favorite red that we make. So, and like red blends kind of change over the years when we go to make the next one, because that's one thing that's pretty...
with the harvest, right?
Yeah, and there's so many things that affect grapes, and like fires are a really big one, and every once in a while California catches on fire. So.
Once a year. Well, I was going to say once a year, but it's a little more frequent. But
so that's actually... Roger continued to make some of his wine some of the Forgotten Barrel wine up in Napa, and he was deciding like, oh, maybe I won't be part of this co-op anymore, but he wasn't really sure. And then fires came through and burned the facility down.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so it kind of made the decision for him, and then 100% of the wine was being made in Escondido. So we source our grapes from all over California. We do as much San Diego as possible, but there are just some grapes that don't grow
here
as well in San Diego. I mean, you can grow anything. Yeah. But like we'll get our cab grapes from Napa, Sonoma. We do a lot from Santa Ynez. We're starting to do a little bit more from Paso Robles. So we just like to source grapes from the best places we can.
Okay.
If it can be San Diego, cool. So we do a lot of our like Syrah, Sangiovese, Tannat. Just that stuff grows well in San Diego. Viognier grapes for white wine grows really well in San Diego. But a lot of things that are like bold, like a cab, we do. The Mourvedre, which we'll drink next, is from Santa Ynez. Like that probably wouldn't be the best San Diego grape, but I don't know. This is also me. I'm learning all of this as I go.
Yeah.
And it was a little intimidating at first when they asked me to do it. I'm like, I love wine, but I don't know wine the way I love beer. But what was nice with beer was even when Dave and Donnie started it, it was at such a small scale. It was like just learning.
You got to learn it as you kind of were
as
growing.
We grew.
And, yeah.
But the winery was already established enough where I'm like, I'm going to be thrown in this. And Roger was like, we have the wine.
I'm glad you said winery. Go ahead and finish it out because I'm ready to move on to the next one.
He was like, we have the wine down. He's like, you can do the business side of things and the marketing and all of that. And then you'll learn how to talk about wine and whatnot. So this is actually like the first like public thing I've done for wine. Yeah.
Oh.
You know what? Actually, I take that back.
Oh.
I went to the Del Mar Fair or the San Diego Fair, whatever they call
it is.
Yeah. It has a different name every year.
They have the agriculture side of things partnered up with basically the wine association, the San Diego Wine Association, and they grow vineyards down at the spot and all of that. And then each day they're open, they have a winery. Do a tasting and talk. And so I'm used to
a guided tasting?
Yeah, kind of like it's like, hey, we'll buy 4 different wines from you and in bulk or whatever. And then we give people tastes of them. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm like, they're like, yeah, I know it could be busy, it might not be, whatever. So I'm thinking like a tent setup and people are gonna walk up and I pour it. And I get down there and like, okay, so this is the stage.
Oh shit.
And we're gonna walk around and pour the wine for everyone, and you're gonna sit up there and talk about the wine, talk about your brand and all this stuff. And then it turns
that
into...
was your first, like...
That was my first one.
Your first public appearance.
Yes.
As a wine person?
I was just like, what the hell? I was like, I guess... And then like, I went back and read the email. I'm like, I guess they kind of did say that's what it was. But I wouldn't have guessed it was at that level.
So how many people do you think it was?
Well, here's where I got lucky with it.
Oh, nobody came?
I did one of the first days of the fair. And it was like a Thursday, and I don't know if a lot of people knew about it. So it was actually like an incredibly small amount of people. And what turned out really cool about it, I was able to kind of bullshit a lot of my way through it, but it just turned out to be like a really personal engagement with everybody. Yeah. Because I was up there. Yeah. I was up there for an hour for each session. To talk about 4 beers or 4 wines. I still do that all the time. Yeah, I'll say Forgotten Barrel Brewery on a very regular basis.
That's the next brand.
Yeah.
Right. That's how you're venturing out.
So I ended up just sitting up there with a microphone and people would ask questions and they would ask more questions about the facility and the brand itself, rather than so much about like each wine we were drinking, which worked out my favor because I know a lot more of the story about the brand and the family before. So it was like weirdly personal for me sitting 40 feet away on a stage.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah. So I would do it again. I would just hope there'd be more people. Yeah. It wasn't like a waste of time, but it was like, well, we didn't.
A good.
But I think all those people that I talked to have been to the tasting room now.
Yeah, well, then it made sense.
Because they're like, well, this is cool. But cool, I got 3 new customers.
Okay. There was probably more than 3 people there.
Literally not much more.
Oh.
Per session, at least.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It would be like 2 couples. And then the next session, I think it was like 2 couples and a single person or something. And it was super weird. But I remember being like a little intimidated when they're like, yeah, you're going to sit right up there on that stage and you're going to do this. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
I said I would do this. I'm doing it.
One.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was already
of course.
down there.
Yeah.
So this is the Mourvedre, 2019 Mourvedre. This grape comes from Santa Ynez. This is our owner's favorite wine that we make. It is a varietal that most people don't know on their own. Because this isn't made as a single varietal wine often.
Because this is my first time hearing about it today.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you haven't heard about it, then obviously no one has.
I mean, exactly. Drink all day.
Have you heard of a GSM?
Yes.
GSM blend?
What
by chance? It's a red blend wine, and GSM stands for Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre.
Yes. Okay.
So a lot of people know GSM is a common blend in red wine, but not a lot of people know what GSM necessarily stands for.
Yeah.
So Mourvedre is the M in GSM, so that's how most people even remotely know this.
Okay.
So we do make a GSM, but we also make this because it tastes so well. But it's a difficult sell because the name alone seems to be kind of intimidating to some people. A lot of people like to carry this when we do weddings, and they'll have this as like one of their bolder wines. But you can always watch somebody come up to the line and they're like, the red blend. Because they're just like, I just want
they don't know how to pronounce it or what?
I think because they don't know how to pronounce it, and especially at a wedding,
or they're just not familiar.
I just want a glass of red wine.
Can you? Can you just put something in my glass?
Yeah.
So red blend, they'll hear that one. And I'll go with that.
Yeah.
But no, this is a great varietal. I guess it's been talked about multiple times before about not doing it again because we have a lot of SKUs, and it is a slower seller just because people don't know what it is. But anytime we have it on our like tasting list, because we'll do tastings when you come in, it's like, oh, you can get these 3 glasses and whatnot. We sell a lot of it when it's on our tasting list.
Yeah, it is. It's quite good.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
Is it Spanish? Oh, sorry. Is it Spanish? Is that what it is?
The origins of Mourvedre, come from Spain.
Oh, okay. I had another question about just like trying to, with that beer and wine comparison, like for beer, it's very like collaboration, sharing of ideas, like rising tides lift all boats. Like, are there similar aspects in wine? Because I just feel like you were saying you can't really do a collaboration with somebody, release in 3 weeks later, do a marketing thing, and then move on. Like, you can't do that in wine. So what are the relationships like with other wineries?
I think I think you could, very specifically, if you were a winery that had a lot of your own estate grapes, and you could be 2 different wineries and say, hey, we brought our grapes over here, and they brought our grapes over here, which is already a thing. But usually people are just buying grapes from each other and then making their own wine. But
not like marketing on that.
I don't think, and like, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know everything about the wine industry.
Right.
Not that I know everything about beer, but I haven't really seen the collaboration side of things done, really.
I was going to say, I haven't really seen that before with wineries. And so I was just curious if it's because of the process that it's just more challenging or difficult, or just like doesn't, make itself, available to that type of creativity in the way that beer does.
But outside of that, like the wineries do all, at least in San Diego, get together. They do agree that like rising tides lift all ships. Boats, ships, boat. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Ski-doos, whatever. But again, it's a very different generation, at least what I'm dealing with, or I'm experiencing so far, where I feel like wine, at least in San Diego, is kind of fair to compare to beer before craft beer really boomed, where there wasn't like a strong marketing sense to it. And it was like, oh, good wine should just sell itself. Well, of course, that would be ideal, just the way good beer should be able to sell itself. But at the end of the day, like marketing is what really brings people in. So that kind of stuff is, I think, a little behind in wine from what I can tell so far in San Diego.
Well, because it's not really like a wine region.
It's not a wine region, even though San Diego is actually like the oldest wine region in California. So
just because it's so agricultural.
It doesn't mean that it like ever blew up the way it did in Napa. And Napa is widely known because of what happened in the 70s when they beat out French wine in competition, and like brought a lot of attention. And I think everyone can agree that Cabernet and Chardonnays and stuff are a really good barometer of what good wine is. But that's a very different zone for growing grapes compared to San Diego. So like Syrah is really good in San Diego, and Syrah is known around the world, but it's not held at the caliber that a Cab is. So what grows really well in San Diego isn't necessarily like the most world-renowned styles of wine, even though they're still popular. But it's just San Diego's a little, I think, behind on that stuff, and it's probably starting to catch up. to where it could be. Temecula is obviously like known.
I was going to say, now you have the Temecula Valley. Or it's not Valley. There's Temecula Wine Trail. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I don't know.
But you go Rancho California, and it's just winery after winery after winery.
And I guess that was a really big...
kind of have that in Escondido a little bit with like the Highland Valley going into Ramona. But
just smaller facilities.
Yes.
So everything's like noticeably smaller. So you can tell when you go up to Temecula that there's like a lot of money behind those wineries. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. It's just they're more appealing as a destination than maybe some like the mom and pop backyard meets a couple acres winery.
Yeah.
It's more impressive. And it's not even that Temecula, again, no insult to what they're doing.
Right.
It's not that Temecula is even really a like wine zone. It's not that grapes, like the best grapes grow out in Temecula. Mm-hmm. But the city really got behind wineries a long time ago, and they're like, hey, we should make this a thing. This will really bring people in. And they really made that work. Mm-hmm. So even like not to throw San Diego tourism under the bus, they would like send people to Temecula. They're like, oh, if you want to go wine tasting, go to Temecula. I was like, you have to drive through, you know, 40 wineries.
So to get to Temecula.
Yeah, there are more, you'll find this interesting. There are more wineries in Escondido than there are breweries in Vista.
Really?
And Vista has like the most.
A lot.
Yeah. Granted, they're like very small to small.
There's no like large productions. Like,
except for Orfila. Orfila is probably the biggest winery in San Diego.
I was going to say, as far as like large scale with like multiple tasting rooms or
there's not
wide distribution or any of that kind of stuff. Like, are there any local San Diego wineries that have that?
Well, Orfila is going to be the biggest. And you have someone like Cruz Cellars that has multiple locations. The multiple location thing isn't really that big, though, as far as I can tell, especially in San Diego.
Yeah.
In the places that do seem to have multiple locations, it's obviously there's only at most one that has like the grounds and the property. So everything else is going to be more like restaurant style or a little like wine bar somewhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is cool. I mean, it's just, again, it's like kind of a pricier product. So when you have a wine bar, you're kind of appealing to a very specific niche group.
You need people with a disposable income.
Yeah. You're not getting too many like 22-year-olds walking by and be like, oh,
I'd love to spend $20 on a glass of wine.
Yeah. So it's a little bit, it's definitely, for me, that's the most noticeable difference from what I'm used to in beer, especially for doing beer for 8 years. But, you know, it's just adapting and it's cool.
That where you guys have your weddings on site, that building, can you?
Yeah. So multiple, we have a couple different structures on our property, and the reception hall is the oldest building on the property. So that was built in 1886. That's the original winery where wine was made. And then as they grew, they built more buildings, and we have like a little lawn that people have their ceremonies at, and we have like a cocktail area, and then you pop over into that building, and it's just like a very old concrete barn house.
It's like peaked cathedral ceiling, and
we get a lot of
just like chandeliers, and
it's,
I don't know,
it's
so
older.
Unique.
It's all, what's cool about our spot, you know, because like the whole rustic look was really in for a while. It might not be as popular as it once was, but our whole place is like authentically rustic. Everything that's around there, all of the equipment that we use as lawn art or whatever, it's all the original building. The only thing that was rebuilt were the bathrooms for obvious reason.
Well, thank God.
Yeah. So everything's like original stone, original brick. The barn doors on that building that you're talking about, those are even older than the property itself. They came from another building. So those are from like 1860 or something, supposedly. And it's just, it's wild how old stuff holds up that well.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So yeah, everything's.
Well, yeah, I feel like that was when I went there, it was such a unique aspect of the winery, was how old and authentic it was. Like, cause you were saying that the trend of, the old
Rustic.
farmhouse
Yeah.
rustic thing was manufactured.
Yeah.
And this is, you can tell it's not a manufactured look.
Yeah.
Like it's very authentic,
Yeah.
and it makes it really special.
And that's really, that's really big in wine, because wine does have so much age on its side. So a lot of places are really old. But it's not really meant to be like this polished look, I don't think.
Yeah.
So people really like it. We're tucked away at like the back of a neighborhood, which is pretty random. People, I would say 100% of people showing up for the first time are like, I don't think we're in the right spot.
Yes,
because
I definitely experienced that.
We're literally in the, like at the dead end of a neighborhood. And when people are like, oh, I wasn't sure I was in the right place, I'm like, yeah, well, this used to be 300 acres, so there used to be no neighborhoods. And then I think it was like in the 50s or so, the family started selling it off to developers. And so it used to be a Barrel Winery. But when you're leaving, you'll see Ferrara Place, Ferrara Court. So they named a lot of the streets after the family. And eventually, when they closed in 2010, the city stepped in and was like, they deemed it a historical landmark because it's the oldest location in San Diego. So it can't be anything but a winery.
Oh.
Now. So, oh, jeez.
Pink double.
Would you like one of these? Yeah. Yeah. So like a woman bought it, I guess, before Roger, and she went to the city and she's like, oh, I'm going to make this a restaurant. And they're like, nope.
You can't.
Can't be anything but wine.
Wow.
So she sold it. And I think she sold it probably directly to Roger, but, yeah, that's pretty cool. So people get really stoked when they hear that. And like, we draw a lot of attention to the history of our place and the family that was before us and all of that. And they were really known for their port wine, which I was maybe going to bring today, but it's just so hot that port wine is not exactly the best sounding right now. But they were, especially towards the end, like their wine, I guess, supposedly kind of went a little downhill, wasn't the best, but they made phenomenal port.
Oh.
And so we get people who come in on a week, every weekend. They're like, I haven't been here in 40 years. Their wine wasn't the best, but I loved their port. And so we actually make 3 ports.
And what is a port exactly?
It's like and we're not really supposed to call it port, but it's a wine that comes from the Portugal region.
Okay.
And it's considered a dessert wine.
Okay.
Higher in alcohol, definitely like a thicker taste, it's almost like molassesy.
Like Japanese slum wine.
Molassesy, yeah. You drink a smaller amount of it and you have it with dessert typically. But if you go to Portugal and you do like wine tours there, you can just go to port. I almost said port brewing for obvious reason. You just go to port winery after port winery.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, that's like a double set.
Yeah. Get it.
So we wanted to kind of keep that going, and so a lot of people, when they hear port, they're like, "Oh, gross, sugary, overly sweet, kind of garbagey." And we always like to give someone like a little sip at the end of their tasting, and they're just like, "Oh, this is not what I'm used to." So yeah, this is like basically a good version. Even though there's tons of good port out there,
right?
If you get it at a lot of restaurants and whatnot, I guess a lot of times they just buy kind of cheap.
Is it like when you get at a restaurant, isn't it more sweeter? Because like you said, it was a dessert wine.
Yeah.
I remember I worked at a restaurant. They would always be like, try to sell the port wine for dessert.
Yes.
Because it's like gets that sweetness in. If somebody doesn't want to buy an actual dessert, then offer them the port, type of thing. But
so that it's exactly what it is. And I think it puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And then they try ours and we're like, and we just give them our entry level version. But us having 3 is like 2 to 3 more than what most wineries have in San Diego.
yeah.
So people are always really excited about that, especially because we relate it to the history of who was there before us.
Okay.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So let's go into we always do a story.
Okay.
And basically whatever kind of drinking story that you have. It could be a good one. It could be a funny one. It can be a messy one, whichever one you want to do. We've had variety of different types of stories. Do we have any drinking
stories together? Probably not. You've kind of always been a mom since we really started. Okay, I'll tell you a drinking story that relates to our wine well before I ever worked for the winery.
Sounds perfect.
Do you want one of these? So
I feel like we might say winery a couple more times.
Yeah. Which one would you like? The red blend, the last one, or the Sauvignon Blanc?
I will do the Mourvedre again, please, as we get geared up for your story. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome. So kind of how I said earlier, I've known the owner for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. His son, one of my best friends, and then he has a daughter as well. And so his daughter got married 12, 13 years ago. I'm not really sure, but sometime after 2010. So she got married and they did like a really nice backyard wedding up in Newport, I think, at their grandmother's house. And Roger brought all of his wine. And so I think it might have been the first time we even had this wine, but it was when it was distribution only. Mm-hmm. And
like the wine that he was making up in Napa.
Yeah. So it was Forgotten Barrel, but Napa wine.
Okay.
And they got like a shuttle bus to take everyone up and everything. And it was just like a normal, nice backyard wedding. But we got off the bus and they greeted everyone with like a little cocktail that I never had before. And it was open bar with the wine.
It's always dangerous.
And and I've never been like a huge drinker. Like I'll drink all the time, but I don't party or whatever. But I remember they were doing tacos and sushi. Oh. And I kept getting up to get a plate. And then somebody's like, oh, I'm hungry. And I gave him my plate, but then I'd be drinking wine. And I ended up not eating anything at this wedding.
What a gentleman.
Well, I mean, that was just like one of the things that I didn't give people my plate every time. I don't really recall what happened. One time I like spilt it on someone or something.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I don't really remember.
I take it back.
But I ended up, it was definitely, so it was the drunkest I've ever been in my life.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And it's not like it was, I don't know. I was young. I didn't drink a ton. Open bar. And I ended up, I was doing it up, but I ended up being like the dude who just ran into the pool.
Oh,
and it like
life of the party.
Yeah. But it wedding. And it wasn't that kind of wedding.
Aren't you taking over these people's wedding?
Yeah. No, but everyone enjoyed it. And then somebody's like, oh, we missed a picture. And I was like, I'll do it again. And I'm just
stop.
Yeah. So it was pretty fun. But that was, the drunkest I've ever been in my life was on Forgotten Barrel wine 10 plus years ago. And now I general manage.
I was going to say, little did you know that you was
going to be the face of it.
And I'm sure at that time, Roger wasn't thinking, that's who I'm hiring down the road.
Right.
He wasn't bummed on anything, but it wasn't exactly like, you can be in control of my business.
Yeah.
Or in charge. I'm not in control.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Right.
So
I mean, that's the great thing about years passing. You have some time to redeem yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty surprised when he reached out, because a couple months prior to me working there, his son was in town because they moved to Texas, and I was hanging out there having a glass of wine, and I was telling them how I had scaled back, and I didn't leave the brewery, but I was no longer a big part. And he was like, oh, if I would have known this, I would have hired you as a general manager. And at the time I was thinking like he just needed a tasting room manager or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not, I wouldn't really be too interested in that. And a couple of months later, he called me up and he was just like, well, this is what I need. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'd like to do. I also need someone for the private events, which is what my girlfriend does. And he's like, she doesn't have to come on board, but it'd be a good opportunity for her too. And it was just like all the things that he laid out. I was like, I know I was like kind of moving away from this direction, but this is more at the scale and the size and the direction that I would really like to go. And it's like, it's kind of in my wheelhouse of skills, if you will. And I was like, I can't really say no to that one. So it's been cool. But awesome. I have not got drunk off our wine like that since the wedding.
It's called
maybe today, if we keep saying winery.
I was gonna say, can we keep saying winery, and maybe we'll get them to the plus 10 plus years ago, Kris jumping into the pool.
I would prefer that not to happen, but
well, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about Forgotten Barrel.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. But we like to take this point to kind of give us a little bit of like some details in terms of social media, websites, where we can find you, give us the address so I can come later, just those different things. Yeah.
Yeah. So forgottenbarrel.com is our website. Instagram, we're forgotten_barrel. Facebook, Forgotten Barrel. We're open Friday, Saturday, Sundays. We do Thursdays during the summer, but Friday through Sundays. We do live music on the weekends a lot of time. If we have weddings, we tend not to have live music just so they don't cross over too much.
Yeah.
We do a lot of sangria on the weekends. And like I was saying, bringing more events, so more brunch events and more unique tasting events and whatnot. But we have wine clubs, just like almost every winery, where if you sign up, you get discounts on everything when you come in, free tastings. And
the event calendar is on the website.
Event calendar is on the website.
Best way to be up to date on those event opportunities or social
media or the event calendar on the website. It's I try to make it as accessible as can be, but it's a fun spot. Everything's outdoors. We don't have food there, but we do like charcuterie-esque stuff, so meats, cheeses, all that. So some of that is very like across the board with wineries, and that's see, when I said Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's one of the things I like. It's a different pace. God damn it.
Are you guys distributed, or is it kind of just going more so to the winery in order?
So when I told you it used to be distributed, there's like zero margin in wine distribution. And as a more boutique style, most of the brands tend to stay away from that unless you're a certain size. Roger kind of brought me on knowing that I knew distribution stuff. So eventually we might try to do some of it. But right now it's just you get it from our location.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's nice. It makes it not easy, but it makes it really sustainable and you know what you're getting yourself into. Distribution's a pain in the ass.
Yes, it's a little challenging.
It's not. I definitely do not miss that side of anything involved.
Yeah.
And Booze Brothers signed on with Carl Strauss, and Carl is and was great. And we buy all of our beer for the winery for events through Carl Strauss, and we carry a lot of Booze Brothers. But that stuff is just, it's a lot of work for what you basically chalk up as a marketing cost. You're like, I'm not really making money off this.
But we're selling more beer.
Definitely working harder and hiring more people and this and that. So I don't miss the being in the middle trying to get to the bigger area. I like being the boutique venue, and it's like, well, we still want to grow it, but we want to grow it within ourselves and not try to take over Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. It's fun.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come see us.
Yeah, no thank you.
It's nice leaving Escondido right now. It's very hot. So.
I mean, you're welcome for saving you.
Yeah, thank you.
From
otherwise I'd just be melting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, So we'll do a final cheers and sign off for today.
To San Diego Wineries.
San Diego Wineries, our last couple wineries.
Thanks for listening and watching Odd Pairing. So please subscribe, like,
rate, and comment with your favorite drinking stories and curiosities about adult beverages.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I'm going to happy hour. Who's driving?